Hello and welcome back to episode 12 of the 2024 Campaign Trail. We have a 2024 poll out of Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District between Josh Hawley and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. As you can see here, Josh Hawley currently holds a 4-point lead in polling over AOC, which would be a flip from 2020, as Joe Biden ended up winning the state by around 6 points. So this is a massive swing to the right. We have another 2024 poll, this time out of Hawaii, between Amy Klobuchar and Chris Sununu. As you can see here, Amy Klobuchar is leading by a substantial amount, roughly about 20 points, if not more, as you can see here. We have another 2024 poll, this time out of Indiana, between Larry Hogan and Mark Cuban. As you can see here, Hogan's only winning this poll by around 12 points, which would be a massive swing to the left if Mark Cuban were to become the nominee. As you can see here, it seems like he has a pretty strong showing in the Rust Belt based off this poll here in Indiana. We have another 2024 poll, this time out of Alaska, between Larry Hogan and Stacey Abrams. Hogan currently has a 9-point lead over Stacey Abrams in this poll, meaning Hogan may not be the best candidate as he's trailing behind Donald Trump in both Indiana and Alaska. Senator Mitch McConnell has announced that he will be endorsing Rick Scott for the presidency, stating that Rick Scott's done a phenomenal job in the Senate. He helped us win back the Senate in the midterms. He will be an amazing president. So, as many people thought he would endorse Nikki Haley, instead he's endorsing Rick Scott for the presidency. Rhode Island Senator Jack Reed has announced his endorsement of Kamala Harris for president, saying that the vice president should always be the next person in line for the nomination, and Kamala Harris has done a phenomenal job as vice president. We now have the results from the 7th Democrat Debate Night 1 coverage. As you can see here, Michelle Obama had a pretty good performance overall in this tonight. Her base was super enthused with her performance. However, she didn't look too strong on all the issues. She looked weak on some, but nothing that could damage her. We do expect her to gain support from this debate. Next up is Tammy Baldwin. As you can see here, she had a pretty bad debate performance. Her base was not really enthused. However, she did look strong throughout the night, and because of that, we do expect her to gain a good chunk of support. Stacey Abrams, however, had an abysmal, bad performance. Her base was not enthused at all. She looked weak throughout the night. However, due to pre-debate polling, we do expect her to, gain support. Next up is Howard Schultz, who had a pretty average debate performance overall. His base wasn't too happy with him, if he does have a base. He did look strong throughout the night, and because of that, we do expect him to gain some levels of support, as well as his massive ad buys. Next up, Amy Klobuchar, who had a pretty average debate performance. However, her base wasn't too happy with her. She looked strong throughout the night, and because of that, we do expect her to gain some levels of support. Next up is Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina. He had an amazing debate performance, one of the best debate performances this month. His base wasn't too happy with him, though. He looked pretty strong throughout the night. However, we do expect him to lose some levels of support. Night 2 coverage of the 7th Democratic debate. Pete Buttigieg had an average debate performance. His base wasn't too enthused with him. He looked strong throughout the night. However, we're unsure whether or not he will gain support from this debate or not. Next up, John Fetterman. He had a pretty average debate performance himself. His base was enthused with him, however. However, he did look weak on some issues, strong on others, but we do expect him to gain some levels of support from this debate. Next up, Senator Kyrsten Sinema had a pretty bad debate performance. Her base was not enthused at all. However, she looked strong throughout the night, but we do expect her to lose some levels of support. Next up is Governor Tulsi Gabbard, who had a pretty below-average debate performance. Her base was not really enthused. However, she looked strong throughout the night, but we do expect her to lose a lot of support from this debate. Next up is Mark Cuban. He had a pretty bad debate performance as well. His base was enthused, however. He looked strong throughout the night. However, we do expect him to lose some levels of support. Next up is Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who had a pretty strong debate performance. Pretty phenomenal debate performance, if you ask me. Her base was enthused, however, she looked pretty weak throughout the night. but we do still expect her to gain some levels of support. Next up, at center stage, Senator Sherrod Brown. He had an abysmal debate performance. His base was not enthused. He didn't look strong all night, but he didn't look weak either. We don't know whether or not he will gain or lose support from this debate. We now have the 2024 Democrat primary poll results for the month of November. In first place, Sherrod Brown at 13.6%. Tulsi Gabbard skyrocketing to second at 13.5%. Roy Cooper at third place at 12.1%. Kyrsten Sinema at 7.6%. Amy Klobuchar at 7.5%. Pete Buttigieg at 7.1%. Mark Cuban at 6.6%. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at 6.5%. Kamala Harris at 6.1%, Michelle Obama at 4%, Tammy Baldwin at 3.9%, John Fetterman at 3.8%, Stacey Abrams at 3.5%, and Howard Schultz at 3.4%. We now have the 2024 Oregon Democrat primary poll results. As you can see here, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is currently leading the pack. Kamala Harris is also above the 15% threshold, so hypothetically both Cortez and Harris would both win delegates from this poll if this was to be the results. In third is Sherrod Brown at 12.1%. Tulsi Gabbard sits at 12%. Howard Schultz sits at 10.6%. John Fetterman sits at 7.6%. Michelle Obama is at 6.1%. Roy Cooper is at 4.5%. Tammy Baldwin is at 4.4%. Mark Cuban is at 3.0%. Pete Buttigieg is at 1.5%. Stacey Abrams at 1.4%. Amy Klobuchar at 1.3%, and Kyrsten Sinema at 1.2%. We now have the polling results for the 2024 Utah Democrat primary poll results. The only candidate to break above 15% is Sherrod Brown at 25.8%, and he would hypothetically win all of Utah's pledged delegates if this were to occur. Kamala Harris is at a distant second at 12.1%, Howard Schultz is at 10.6%, Roy Cooper is at 9.1%, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at 7.6%, Michelle Obama is at 7.5%, Tulsi Gabbard at 6.1%, Kyrsten Sinema is at 4.5%, Tammy Baldwin is at 4.4%, John Fetterman is at 4.3%, Mark Cuban is at 3.0%, Pete Buttigieg is at 1.5%, Stacey Abrams at 1.4%, and Amy Klobuchar at 1.3%. We now have the polling results for the 2024 Idaho Democrat primary poll results. And look here, John Fetterman is no longer leading in Idaho. He's now in second behind Kamala Harris. He isn't even above 15%. Kamala Harris at 18.2%, and if this were to happen, she would hypothetically win all of Idaho's pledged delegates. John Fetterman's at 13.6%, Sherrod Brown at 9.1%, Howard Schultz at 9%, Michelle Obama at 7.6%, Mark Cuban at 7.5%, Roy Cooper at 7.4%, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at 7.3%, Kyrsten Sinema at 4.5%, Pete Buttigieg at 1.5%, Stacey Abrams at 1.4%, and Amy Klobuchar at 1.6%. We now have the poll results for the 2024 Washington Democrat primary poll. As you can see here, the only candidate above 15% is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at 24.2%. This may be due to the endorsement of Jay Inslee that she has. Kamala Harris is at a distant second at 13.6%, Sherrod Brown at 9.1%, Howard Schultz at 9.0%, Tulsi Gabbard at 7.6%, John Fetterman at 7.5%, Michelle Obama at 6.1%, Tammy Baldwin at 6%, Roy Cooper at 4.5%, Amy Klobuchar at 4.4%, Kyrsten Sinema at 3.0%, Mark Cuban at 1.5%, Pete Buttigieg at 1.4%, and Stacey Abrams at 1.3%. We now have the results for the 7th Republican primary debate coverage. They have decided to add all the candidates on one stage. As you can see here, Mitt Romney has a phenomenal performance in the debate. However, his base wasn't too enthused by him. He didn't look too strong or too weak at the debate. We do expect him to lose some levels of support due to this. Next up, Nikki Haley. She had a pretty average debate performance. Her base was enthused, however. She looked strong throughout the night. However, we do expect her to lose some support from this debate. Next up is Governor Jim Justice, who had a pretty below average debate performance. His base was meh on his performance. He looked pretty strong throughout the night. We do expect him to gain some levels of support. Next up is Governor Mike Lindell, who had a pretty phenomenal debate performance. He dropped the election-rigged hoodoo nonsense, and however, his base wasn't too happy that he did that. However, he looked strong throughout the night. However, we do expect him to lose some levels of support. Next up was Kanye West, who had a pretty average debate performance. His base was enthused by his performance, however, he looked strong throughout the night as always, but we do expect him to lose some levels of support because of his average performance. Next up is Governor Charlie Baker, who had a pretty bad debate performance. His base was happy with his performance, however. He looked weak throughout the night. We don't know whether he will gain or lose support, however. Next up is Tucker Carlson, who had a pretty below-average debate performance. His base wasn't too happy with him. He looked weak throughout the night. We do expect him to lose some levels of support. Next up is Senator Rick Scott, who had a pretty below-average debate performance. His base was happy with him, however. He looked strong throughout the night. We do expect him to gain some levels of support from said debate. Next up, Governor Greg Abbott, who had a pretty good debate performance. His base wasn't too happy with him. He looked weak throughout the night. We do expect him to lose some levels of support. Next up, Ben Carson had a pretty below-average debate performance. His base wasn't too happy with him. He looked weak throughout the night. However, due to post-debate polling, we do expect him to gain some support. Next up, Senator Josh Hawley, who had a pretty abysmal debate performance throughout the night. His base wasn't too happy with him. He looked weak throughout the night. We don't know whether he will gain or lose support from this debate. Next up is Senator Larry Hogan, who had a pretty good debate performance. His base was happy with him, however, he looked weak throughout the night, and we don't know whether he will gain or lose support because of him appearing weak at the debate. Next up, Senator Chris Sununu, who had a below-average debate performance. His base wasn't too enthused. He looked weak throughout the night. We expect him to lose some level of support. Next up, Governor Ron DeSantis at center stage. He had a pretty bad debate performance. However, his base was enthused. However, he did look weak throughout the night, but due to post-debate polling, we do expect him to gain some levels of support. We now have the primary polling out of the 2024 national polling results for the Republican primary for November. Ron DeSantis in first place at 16.7%. Tucker Carlson takes back his place as second place at 12.1%. Chris Sununu at 9.1%. Jim Justice at 7.1%. Kanye West at 7%. Mitt Romney at 6.6%. Larry Hogan at 6.5%. Josh Hawley at 6.4%. Nikki Haley at 6.1%. Ben Carson at 5.1%. Greg Abbott at 4.5%. Rick Scott at 4.4%. Charlie Baker at 4%, and Mike Lindell at 3.9%. We now have the results for the 2024 West Virginia Republican primary poll. The only candidate above 15% is Jim Justice, who sits at 31.8%, meaning he would hypothetically win all of their pledged delegates. Josh Hawley's in a distant second at 10.6%. Tucker Carlson is at 10.5%. Kanye West is at 10.4%. Ron DeSantis is at 7.6%. Rick Scott is at 7.5%. Charlie Baker is at 6.1%. Mike Lindell is at 6%. Greg Abbott is at 4.5%. Ben Carson's at 1.5%. Larry Hogan's at 7.1%. And Chris Sununu sits at the bottom at 1.3%. We now have the results for the 2024 Arizona Republican primary poll. The only candidate above 15% is Governor Ron DeSantis at 21.2%. Hypothetically, he would win all of Arizona's pledged delegates if this were to occur. And second is Josh Hawley at 10.6%. Kanye West sits at 10.5%. Greg Abbott's at 9.1%. Rick Scott's at 9%. Mike Lindell is at 8.9%. Tucker Carlson's at 7.6%, Mitt Romney's at 6.1%, Jim Justice at 4.5%, Charlie Baker's at 4.4%, Nikki Haley's at 3.0%, Chris Sununu's at 10.9%, and Larry Hogan is at 1.5%. We now have the results for the 2024 Washington Republican primary poll, and the only candidate above 15% is Chris Sununu, so he would hypothetically win all of their pledged delegates. In second is Ron DeSantis at 12.1%. Josh Hawley is at 12%. Tucker Carlson at 9.1%, Charlie Baker at 7.6%, Rick Scott at 7.5%, Greg Abbott at 6.1%, Mike Lindell at 6%, Kanye West at 5.9%, Jim Justice at 4.5%, Mitt Romney at 3%, Nikki Haley at 2.9%, Larry Hogan at 2.8%, and Ben Carson at 1.5%. We now have the polling results for the 2024 North Dakota Republican primary poll results. And first is Ron DeSantis at 21.2%, and he's the only candidate above 15%, so he would hypothetically win all of North Dakota's pledged delegates. Next is Tucker Carlson at 13.6%, Josh Hawley at 12.1%, Rick Scott at 10.6%, Kanye West at 7.6%, Jim Justice at 6.1%, Greg Abbott at 6%, Mike Lindell at 5.9%, Mitt Romney at 4.5%, Charlie Baker at 4.4%, Nikki Haley at 3%, Larry Hogan at 2.9%, and Chris Sununu at 1.5%. Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie has broken a streak of libertarian Republicans endorsing Tucker Carlson and has instead endorsed Ron DeSantis for the presidency. This is a big blow to Tucker Carlson and a big win for Ron DeSantis, as this will surely help him in more libertarian-leaning states such as Kentucky, Iowa, New Hampshire, Montana, New Mexico, etc. Indiana Senator Todd Young has endorsed Ron DeSantis for the presidency. This is not a surprise here, but this will help Ron DeSantis in the state of Indiana in the primary. Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono has announced that she will not be seeking re-election in 2024. This will be her last term as senator, which now opens the Democrat primary field substantially. Tammy Baldwin has announced that she will be ending her presidential campaign due to low polling numbers. She did not meet the polling threshold for the debate, and she has announced that she sees no other pathway for her to win the nomination, and she will end her campaign. Senator John Fetterman has ended the once promising White House run. Again, same thing with Tammy Baldwin. He missed the threshold, and he will not be allowed at the debate. He sees no path forward. Stacey Abrams has suspended her presidential campaign. This is one of those moments where you think someone could be the front runner and then they flop it at the end. Again, similar to Fetterman and Baldwin, she did not make the polling threshold for the debate. Michelle Obama has shockingly ended her presidential bid. Again, she was once the front runner in this race, and now she had faded down to the bottom of the pack, just faded out with the other candidates. So she has ended her campaign and will endorse a candidate soon, most likely Kamala Harris. Howard Schultz has ended his presidential campaign, and he says he is making an endorsement very soon, and he knows exactly who he wants to endorse. Now, where does the candidate stand on Planned Parenthood? Well, we've got a list. So, for the first stance, we have a temporary funding pause, which Senator Chris Sununu and Governor Jim Justice both said, as they want to temporarily pause the funding to Planned Parenthood and, investigate the place for, see if they're doing anything illegal. And now the stance of defund Planned Parenthood permanently. We have 5 Republicans, all Republicans. Senator Rick Scott of Florida, Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican from Texas, Governor Mike Lindell, a Republican from Minnesota, Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican from Missouri, and news host Tucker Carlson, a Republican from California. And now the stance of reform what is funded, we actually have kind of bipartisan support for this one. Former HUD Secretary Ben Carson, rapper Kanye West, Governor Charlie Baker, Senator Larry Hogan, Senator Mitt Romney, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, Governor Ron DeSantis, Senator Sherrod Brown, Governor Roy Cooper, and businessman Mark Cuban all have a similar stance of they want to reform what is funded in Planned Parenthood. And then the final stance is increased funding for Planned Parenthood, and these are all Democrats: Amy Klobuchar, Kirsten Sinema, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Buttigieg, and Kamala Harris all want to increase funding for Planned Parenthood. Jim Justice has held a rally in Baltimore, Maryland. This was a pretty bad rally performance he had. The crowd really wasn't enthused by the rally. However, he did look pretty good throughout the debate. He looked strong. He looked energetic. and because, you know, it looks good on the news media, we do expect him to gain some support from that. Donald Trump went out to Gilbert, Arizona to endorse Andy Biggs for the Arizona Senate race. This is a shock because Kelly Ward is actually running for Senate as well, and many people thought he was going to endorse her, but instead he endorsed Congressman Andy Biggs for the Senate seat. Josh Hawley has shockingly ended his presidential campaign, citing fundraising issues, as stating that he probably wouldn't have been able to make the debate anyway because he didn't have enough money. So he will now focus on his efforts to win re-election to the Senate come 2024. Here's the fundraising report. Chris Sununu is at 32,800 donors. Amy Klobuchar is at 7,800 donors. Rick Scott is at 32,000 donors. Sherrod Brown is at 19,600 donors. Jim Justice is at 25,600 donors. Greg Abbott is at 11,500 donors. Mike Lindell is at 8,600 donors. Ben Carson is at 14,000 donors, excuse me. Kanye West is at 17,200 donors. Charlie Baker is at 18,600 donors. Larry Hogan's at 11,100 donors. Kirsten Sinema is at 26,200 donors. Mitt Romney is at 8,800 donors. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is at 14,500 donors. Roy Cooper is at 7,900 donors. Tulsi Gabbard's at 12,100 donors. Mark Cuban's at 21,600 donors. Pete Buttigieg is at 25,900 donors. Kamala Harris is at 9,800 donors. Nikki Haley is at 10,000 donors. Tucker Carlson's at 36,800 donors. And Ron DeSantis at 23,500 donors. And now we have the lineup for the 8th Republican primary debate, which is going to be held on December 5th in Little Rock, Arkansas. As we can see here, we have Mike Lindell, Rick Scott, Ben Carson, Larry Hogan, Kanye West, Chris Sununu, Ron DeSantis at center stage, Tucker Carlson, Jim Justice, Mitt Romney, Nikki Haley, Greg Abbott, and Charlie Baker. And we also have the 8th Democrat primary debate lineup, which is going to be a one-night affair as well. This will be held in December 12th. Location still unknown. But we have Kamala Harris, Mark Cuban, Amy Klobuchar, Roy Cooper, Sherrod Brown at center stage, Tulsi Gabbard, Kirsten Sinema, Pete Buttigieg, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. However, we now have the 9th Democrat primary debate, which will be held January 2nd. This is going to be we're going to have 4 debates next month, in January, This will be held in Denver, Colorado. A requirement to get on this debate, you need 7,500 unique donors, you need 6% or more in the national average, and 5% or more in one state poll, and the debate will be hosted by CNN. For the 9th Republican primary debate, this will be held January 9th. Location will be in Indianapolis, Indiana, hosted by Fox News. You need 7,500 unique donors to participate. You need to be in the top 12 in the national average by December 30th, and you need 5% or more in one state poll or more. We also have stuff to talk about the 10th Republican primary debate, January 23rd. It will be held in Iowa City, Iowa. This will be held by CBS. You need 7,500 unique donors, pretty much the same as the last one. And the Democrats also have a debate January 30th in Des Moines, Iowa, hosted by Fox News. Same requirements as the previous debate. So we have a 9th and 10th debate coming to you in January. Now let's take a look at the candidates thus far. We have 13 Republicans and 9 Democrats. We have Senator Chris Sununu, Senator Rick Scott, Governor Jim Justice, Governor Greg Abbott, Governor Mike Lindell, former Secretary Ben Carson, rapper Kanye West, Governor Charlie Baker, Senator Larry Hogan, Senator Mitt Romney, former Ambassador Nikki Haley, Governor Ron DeSantis, and news host Tucker Carlson. And on the Democrat side, we have Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Sherrod Brown, Senator Kirsten Sinema, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Governor Greg Abbott, Governor Tulsi Gabbard, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, businessman Mark Cuban, and Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out the new poll in the description, and don't forget to go follow my Twitter at Khaotic Politics. This is the Khaotic One saying, peace.